This is going to be a solo meth sail from the city end of this island location. What have we got?
All right.
Planes.
These drops are only accessible by sea.
Okay, got the message. So when you're selling from the city to the countryside for that 50% bonus, most of the drops are going to be round the top of the island. There are often one or two in the Alamo Sea, which is the difficult part. If you get one of those, it does mess up your route a little bit. So the planes are always stacked up here for any of the sails from the city. And the problem here sometimes is if you've got aggressive players in the lobby who like destroying other people's hard work, then they're very, very obvious to everybody who comes near them. However, generally, I like these seaplane sails. They're a little bit tight on time sometimes, but it's just a peaceful flight over the ocean. You cut a little bit of time out by flying over the hills, but it adds a little bit of stress because you've got to watch where you're going. And these planes are not terribly fast. Here comes our first drop. On the left in the mini-map, you'll see a kind of a altimeter. It took me a while to figure out what it's actually saying is just keep below that top long black line and you're fine. Once you get over that, you'll hear beeps, and you've got about 5 or 6 beeps before you will be attracting police attention. If you're going over mountains with kind of ridges, then every time you go over a new ridge, it'll stop the beeps and then you'll restart again. So you don't necessarily have to hug the contours absolutely, and that's kind of tough in a plane. But you want to keep reasonably low. And when I start these drops, I always look and see is there one in the Alamo Sea. If there is, sometimes there's 2 in the Alamo Sea. then you've got to figure out what route you're going to take to get there. Otherwise, it's just a straight flight round the island doing the drops as you go, so very straightforward. If you have 3 people doing this together, it's just a really nice, simple, easy mission, unless someone chases you with a jet and decides they're going to blow you up, or a helicopter, in which case they're going to succeed because there's nothing you can do about it. If you have another person on the team who can defend you in some way, then maybe they can do something. But if you're flying one of these planes and somebody decides to shoot it down, there's nothing you can do. You could theoretically have a passenger with a flare gun, I suppose, firing out the window, but if there were 3 planes, you'd need 6 people in the team. And that's really not going to happen. But generally I like these flights. I can see some smoke there, that's probably my drop. You see this boat here, that's going to be on a second plane. They never organise it that one plane drops in one area and another plane drops in another area. They're all basically taking the same route. So if all 3 of you are flying, you will actually see each other dropping packages. It's kind of fun. And as always with these missions, I'm hoping to get the first plane empty and back to the start of the second plane within around 10 minutes. Got one more drop on this plane. And then the tricky question to ask yourself is, am I quicker flying just the plane back? Is that going to be quicker? Or should I land the plane or jump out of the plane and try and fly back on the oppressor? Because you've got the animation of jumping out of the plane, you've got the flight time on a parachute, and then you've still got to deal with jumping on the oppressor and flying back over to your next location. So generally speaking, unless I think I'm going to be super tight on time, I just fly the plane. As long as I'm there within about 10 minutes, I'm good. And of course, as usual with the last plane, the mission ends on the 15th drop, so you don't have to worry about time getting back to the next plane after that one. So even if you go a little bit over that 10 minutes, it's still not a panic. You should be able to finish this with a couple of minutes in hand. It's never super quick when you're doing it solo. Here's the smoke from my final drop, and I'm on a very remote part of the coast here. There are no roads along the coast, so if I were to switch to another vehicle, I can't just dump the plane in the sea. I would have to fly and land somewhat, so I'm probably just going to fly the plane right across. Still got a minute in hand, so that will see me most of the way back to the beach. And what I tend to do is parachute out on these drops. I parachute out of the plane as I'm getting to the beach, parachute out of the beach, plane crashes in the sea, don't need it anymore. And if I do it right, I don't attract police attention. Because they're not bothered about explosions out at sea, only if they're on the ground, usually. If you're too close to the shore, then it might bother them. But you're still going to be flying around the coast to get to your next drop, so it doesn't matter that much. You'll know roughly where it's going to be. What can go wrong in these missions is you fly into a pylon, like that one just to my left, especially when it's super dark. Using the rudder just to straighten up a little bit on the targets. or you get too high for too long and you attract police attention. Or you crash into a building. Now, if I crashed right now, it probably wouldn't matter so much because the plane's empty, but you do not want to crash when you've got product on the plane. Not going to be able to squeeze through those, I don't think. So over the top and about now. Jump out. That seemed to work reasonably well. And no drops in the Alamo Sea again this time. That's nice. In these planes also, on these missions, I'm on the accelerator, by the way, all the time on the accelerating trigger, so flying at the top speed I can manage to get round in time. Also watch for trees, they don't put lights on those, so in poor lighting conditions, poor visibility, it is easy to smack itself into a tree. There's my first flare. And if you actually hit the water in this, as it's a seaplane, it doesn't matter so much, it's going to float anyway, unless you hit at the wrong angle and flip the whole thing. There's another flare there. So the main thing with the planes, you've got to get to the planes, and for that purpose you either want your oppressor, which hopefully you have, or have a Pegasus vehicle ready, or if you're in a group, someone's got the set up as a road captain and they can call in a buzzers for you all to get in. All the planes are going to be in pretty much the same location. When you're selling from the countryside to the city, so you've got one of the cheap locations, and they are absolutely fine, by the way, they'll all be lined up next to the Alamo Sea, but you will be on the wrong side of the sea, so you've got to get across it or around it, and I recommend flying to get there. It's going to be so much quicker. But when you land, you can actually land the planes on the bit of strip of beach where the other two planes are, as long as you don't crash into them. This one, because you're at the wrong angle on the beach, landing doesn't really help you. It's just going to take too long. Watching for the trees here. Don't want to be too low for the trees or too high for the police. I mean, the most annoying part of these drops is that you've got to fly either over or around some of the biggest mountains, and that obviously makes life a little bit more awkward. But I don't think I've ever, well, not since my very early days of doing these missions, actually crashed the plane or failed to do the drop. I can see smoke there, so we're actually quite close to the drop, even though we can't see the boat yet. There it is. I'm expecting the third plane is going to be the one that's got at least one Alamo Sea drop, possibly two. Two is no harder than one, since you're going to be there anyway. In fact, two would be preferable. Sometimes they split those drops between the planes. One to go, and I can see the smoke. And you'll find, although everyone gets 5 drops, if you're doing 3 people, your drops aren't always necessarily equally spread. So just because one person finishes quicker than somebody else doesn't mean they did it better. They just got a different spread. Not that it's a competition, you're all helping each other out. And there's the last drop from that plane. Again, we're on a very deserted section of coastline over here. No point pitching the plane down here and trying to call in an oppressor. There's no road for it to arrive on. But as you see, I caught up a little bit. I've got 12 minutes now on the clock, so I'm a little bit ahead from where I was on the first set of drops. And of course, it took me a couple of minutes to get to the original pickup location. You do want to watch out for these windmills. They actually do have blades on them, they can hit you. Just passed over my facility there. Watch out for the pylon. In fact, I appear to be flying along the pylon, so that's not the smartest move. Okay, let's change direction. Watching for the palm trees. Again, I'm not going to squeeze between these two tower blocks, so pop over the top, and as soon as I do, I'm going to be ready to jump out. Oh, well, that wasn't quite as planned. That did actually gain a little bit of police attention, but no problem. I know I'm going to be flying up the coast. Pretty sure I'm going to be flying across the Alamo Sea. One star is not going to bother anybody. Okay, we've got our layout. Quick look at the map. Make sure I don't crash while I'm doing it. And indeed, we've got 2 drops in the sea and 3 round the top of the coast. So I'll do the 3 across the top of the coast first, and then dart over the mountains to get those last 2 in the sea. We're flying at almost exactly 100 miles an hour. When we're on full throttle. Which is not super fast. As you see, not terribly stressful, just a peaceful flight around the coast. There's the next flare, and also 6:44, the sun's just rising. I think sunrise is 6 AM in this game, which would be a nice simple time to do it. And unfortunately it's 6 AM every day, there's no seasonal changes for that. There's the marker. So just under 4 minutes to get the last 2 drops. Should be done with a couple of minutes to spare. It's these two are going to be very close together. I can see the smoke from one of them already. Obviously, don't want to make sure we don't want to crash into this bridge. I can actually see the smoke from the second drop already from not even having reached the first drop. That's how close these last 2 are. So there we go. Last one's over there. Now, as long as I'm still flying the plane, it won't kick me out of the plane. But I could get a business attack. So what I tend to do is teleport back to my apartment to avoid the risk of that, and then drop the NC presidency. So in my office, in my telephone, continue heist. And abandon the plane. Back to my heist room. Drop MC. Job done. Notice I got a star there because I crashed a plane somewhere on the ground, but the police are not going to be able to find me in my apartment. So I don't have to worry about that. That will pass. And that will do for this video.